Hello there. Today I'm trying a Riesling from New York State's Finger Lakes region. So this is actually from the Seneca AVA. This is Hermann J Wiemer's semi-dry Riesling, 2016 vintage of that. Hermann J Wiemer Estate has been one of the pioneers of the Finger Lakes region and Seneca AVA, and has been one of its leading producers for several decades now. Hermann Wiemer himself came from his native Germany, where he grew up in Bernkastel, right in the heart of the Mosel. He'd learned winemaking at the Geisenheim Institute. His father ran a viticultural station, and he had a heritage of winemaking going back hundreds of years in his family. And in 1968, he came to the Finger Lakes region, and there found soil types very similar to what he'd seen in his home region of the Mosel, and felt that the moderating influences on the climate that the lakes produced meant that the climate was not unlike the Mosel as well. So by 1973, Hermann bought land to plant vines. He actually didn't start planting until 1976, and he founded the company in 1979 to make these wines. The land he bought is northwest of the town of Dundee, on the shores of Lake Seneca. And as I say, he chose this area because of the soil types, and the soil types here were a deep, friable, glacial deposit, so gravels basically. The estate in its current form comprises something like 32 hectares of vines, and there's a 6-hectare vine nursery as well. Although the company's reputation is based largely on the quality of its Rieslings, it does also make red wines, a Pinot Noir and a Cabernet Sauvignon, and some other whites, a Gewürztraminer and a Chardonnay. Hermann himself retired from winemaking in 2004, handing that over to his apprentice and protege, Fred Meerwerf. In 2007, Hermann sold out of the business completely. So the business is now run by Fred and his wife, Marissa, and they are, between them, the winemaker and the viticulturist for the estate. And then they're backed by a university friend of Fred's, a Swede called Oskar Binker. And throughout this change, the winery seems able to have maintained its reputation for making high quality wines. This particular wine's 100% Riesling, and it's one of the first picked wines that the estate makes. Essentially what they'll do is they'll go through and they'll do an early pick of fruit from their 3 main vineyards. So that's the HJW vineyard, the Joseph vineyard, and the Madeleine vineyard. These are all vineyards that are produced as single vineyard dry whites as well. The estate's entirely organically farmed, and a percentage of it is also maintained biodynamically as well. The fruit is hand-picked and sorted. It's pressed as whole bunches, some nice clean juice. Fermentation goes on with the ambient yeasts, it's a wild ferment. That goes on in temperature-controlled stainless steel tanks, and because fermentation is simply allowed to start on its own, the fermentations take quite a long time. In fact, semi-dry Riesling will only take 3 months to complete its fermentation, whereas some of the drier Rieslings, starting later and finding themselves fermenting in conditions that are cooler, will actually take sort of 5 or 6 months to complete their fermentation. So from among Hermann J Wiemer's wines, this wine completes its fermentation relatively quickly. So let's take a look at the wine, shall we? The wine has a pale to medium yellow colour with greenish hints. Swelling it, it's not particularly throwing heavy tears on the side of the glass. 11.5% alcohol, so that's unsurprising. On the nose, there's a very limey aroma. It's slightly waxed lime, there's notes of toastiness. There are some hints of lime blossom, but actually the liminess is overtaking that. They're not the sort of the delicate lifted aromas that you might get from a younger wine. So there are hints of lime. There's almost a slight touch of lemon curd on the aromas. So let's have a taste and see what we make of it, shall we? The wine starts with a taut, appley, minerally, crisp, and quite tart acidity. And that is counteracted to an extent by a sort of an appley sweetness. It is only a semi-sweetness. This particular vintage only has 9 grams per litre of sugar. It's more usual that they stop this with about 20 grams of sugar. So the acidity has this sort of malic cut to it. It's that sort of sharp, appley note that's cutting right through. And the mid palate has a sort of a slightly creamy, slightly lemon curd sort of note to the texture. There's notes of lime. The lime is waxy, got toasty notes overlaying it. There's some nice complexity. The wine's of mid-weight, it's not particularly full-bodied. The alcohol is balanced, it's not intruding. The acidity, while initially quite sharp and tart, is actually eventually overwhelmed by the fruit, and it reappears just at the end to give us a little bit of a limey cut to the finish there, sort of a bit of a sort of lime pith to the finish. I think that's fully mature wine. I don't think that's going to develop much further, other than to become more sort of waxy, and it will lose that of its primary fruit aroma that remains with it. So I think, while there's no hurry to drink it up over the next year or two, that would be absolutely fine. I think that's probably at its best now. It is, after all, a 7-year-old wine, so it's not doing too badly for what's a relatively low alcohol wine. So yes, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the video of interest. If you've enjoyed it, do please press the like button. That'd be fantastic. If you think your friends would be interested, do please share it with them. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think about the wine, the tastings we're doing, or any other related matters. Do please also consider signing up and following us on YouTube. That'd be fantastic to have your support. And that way, hopefully, you'd join us for another tasting again in the very near future. Hopefully see you then. Bye for now.